So anyway,
All right, we'll do that. No, not an issue. Not an issue.
cool. Hey, Lucy.
Hey, how are you? Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the February 26, 2025 Apex Parks Recreation and Cultural Resources Advisory Commission meeting. We always start off with a moment of invocation, so if you would. Thank you. And now our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As always, the meeting minutes are sent out ahead for us to be able to review. If there aren't any corrections or objections to last meeting's minutes, I would just need a motion for the approval of the January 29th, 2025 meeting minutes.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Next would be the executive report and projects program report, all in one. All in one.
Alrighty. So let's talk about street hockey first. So we just had a conversation with those folks, meaning the Hurricanes. And grand open is March 29th, and it's going to be from 2 to 4 p.m. So, and I'm going to get those times to you as well, Alan, because we just found that out. But so 2 to 4 p.m. So that's a huge thing. They are trying to get some players out to come to the event as well. So there'll be a huge media blast out prior to that. So we're working through all the details, but this is your invite to come out and experience the grand opening of the street hockey courts. So just wanted to make you aware of that. We're going through our fee studies right now, the fee and lieu side of things on Angela's side, and the program and rental fee study that we're currently working through. We're doing some benchmarking with some surrounding towns, and we're just gathering information to come to some type of consensus on what we feel is best for the town of Apex. So we're working through that process. Working through the West Street renovation contract and public input side of things. So we're trying to get some dates figured out for that as well. So that should be on your radar soon. We'll make each of you aware of when that's occurring. We just did our first visioning session for the Environmental Education Center. So that went really well. And Daniel Edwards, our capital projects manager, he's kind of leading that charge. Yeah. So, and then we've got Middle Creek, Beaver Creek, Greenway construction still underway. And yeah, it's kind of where we are. Got a lot of things going on. Basketball is still going on. Spring sports are getting started. So lots of things happening.
Yes,
That's
sir.
all we got.
All right. Michael Candace, excited about street hockey?
I am so excited, and I was going to request a change in the opening date.
I saw him look at his calendar. I thought he was putting it in his calendar. Yeah.
Can't make it.
Yeah, oh man, I hate that. Yeah.
We'll video it.
I'll FaceTime you from there. We'll,
There you go.
That's not the same.
With your arm around a Hurricanes player.
Yeah.
So I went to a Hurricanes game about 3 weeks ago, and they had, during when they were playing, so they had a whole kind of bit on the construction of
Oh,
the
wow.
courts in downtown. I thought it was really cool. Yeah.
Very cool. It's an exciting thing for sure.
Can I don't know if we've really done this, but I think just want to recognize that Michael kind of got the ball rolling on this for this project and was a big part of it.
Absolutely.
So I just,
And we've talked about this before
Yeah,
here.
right.
And I will tell you, we're also in conversations with Mike and NC State
Right.
about potentially kind of partnering up for to do some study analysis out there for usage of the facilities too. So
Post-op. Post-op.
so those are some conversations that we're currently having.
Yeah,
as
no,
well.
we're excited about it. Yeah.
And yes,
This is
he
such a unique
absolutely
facility,
did that.
right?
Absolutely.
yeah.
nothing
Meetings,
like
what, 2 years, 3 years ago at Neomode turned into a
It was a
where-
conversation. that was
conversation.
presented
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Monday.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, it started.
Feels like that opening date needs to be considered then. It really feels like.
Just throwing it out
Get
there.
Jock on the phone. Get him on the phone.
That's why I said.
That's okay,
need to
you
change
just, you
this.
just name a rink after him. That's okay.
But no, like I guess NC State couldn't figure anything out for it originally.
Yeah, so I mean, we were really close. We actually had renderings and everything. This was going to go on NC State's campus, right in the center of campus, right behind Carmichael Gym. If those of you familiar with NC State know where there's outdoor basketball courts there. So we had the site. We had come to command renderings. Hurricanes were really happy. I was working through the branding process, the shared branding between NC State and Hurricanes, and then this little thing called a pandemic hit. And then just stalled the project, and then athletics showed some interest in the site, and it sort of, I couldn't get a commitment, so I made a phone call to Craig and Angela, and hey, what do you think? What do you think? So
does it get to leagues later on, and is that the direction? Okay.
Hurricanes will be doing programming. We'll be doing some programming. We'll probably be going into a partnership or two for others to be doing some programming as well. There'll be some rentals, most likely.
I think we could have a advisory board street hockey game or something.
We could.
Can we get a
Us
40
against
plus
the
street hockey?
council.
I don't want to play versus 20-year-olds.
Oh, that would be good.
We'll have some practice sessions.
Ball hockey. There's Raleigh Ball Hockey League, so.
I like it.
But thank you for bringing that up.
It is, right? So there was 3-4 years ago you met with Thomas and Shane down there, and it's turned into that. And
Yeah, it's been a while.
I do think, to your point about not skates, I think that my understanding is the concept of why it is where it is because it's supposed to be accessible, right? So you could show up with a hockey stick and a ball and play versus have to have all the equipment.
And you use your shoes. You don't have to put rollerblades on or anything. It's just stick and a ball, and away you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Exciting times. That's everything.
Can I check you if I play?
You can try.
Oh, sweet. I can catch you is what you're saying. Okay.
Moving down the agenda, Chairman's report. I don't have anything this evening. Pause for public comment. Looks like none there. Any old business? And then there are 4 items on our new business agenda. First is the Resident Advisory Board update and next steps.
Hello, everyone.
Good evening.
Hope everyone has enjoyed the weather today. Beautiful weather. Okay. So I am going to go over an update from the December work session we had. So this is from the December 17th work session, council work session. We did a discussion on all of our resident advisory boards. So I'm going to go in, and so this is just a little overview on what we will be talking about. Look, current scope and responsibilities, updates and any changes, and a timeline for implementing these changes and what you can expect next. So the town of Apex had 9 advisory boards. They did dissolve 2 in December at the work session. Excuse me. So now we have 7 advisory boards that provide recommendations to the town council on various topics. So these boards allow community members to engage with local government and help shape policies that will affect our town. So you'll see the 2 highlighted in bold are statutory required, and the others are created by the town to address, specific needs for the council. So why are we pretty much doing this? So the School of Government has advised that municipalities should regularly review their appointed boards. And so that is exactly what we are doing. So the goal of this is to review all of our advisory boards for the applicability and effectiveness that for each board, right? So how are we doing that? So we have asked, how is our advisory boards currently operating, and are there opportunities for improvement? So with that, the best practice was to update our government structures and ensure that these boards remain responsible and aligned with the town's strategic goals. So during our discovery process, our research and discovery process, we did do a comprehensive research, and by that we surveyed some neighbors and counties. We also held some meetings with staff liaison and department directors, also chair and vice chair, to get their feedback and insights on the board operations and any challenges that you're having with your board. And also currently developing a advisory member handbook for each advisory board, for all the advisory boards, excuse me. So during that discovery process, we identified some themes, and those are unclear roles, right? So many board members and staff members were unsure of what their specific duties were. Measurements of success and reporting, what does that look like? So the metrics of success, such as completed projects, policy recommendations, community engagement, setting that up. Inconsistent practices, so meeting procedures, training, reporting. So those themes, these are some themes that we that were identified during the discovery process. Okay, any questions so far? Doing good? Okay, so now we're going to dive deep into some administrative policy recommendations. So as you see here, these are policy recommendations that are going to be across all advisory boards. So I'll go into a little bit of each one here. So attendance, board members, so missing 3 consecutive meetings or 25% of meetings for a year, 12 months. And also, so that attendance will be reported out quarterly. Okay, so no missed meetings, no missed 3 consecutive meetings. Stipend, so all resident advisory boards will receive a stipend. You are eligible for one as long as you attend the meeting, and those will be paid out quarterly. Term lengths, the term lengths now will be between 2 to 3 years. Most boards will be 2 years. The 3 years comes in with the Board of Adjustment. They are statutory required for 3-year terms. All the other boards will be 2-year terms with 3-year maximum. So that's 6 consecutive years. Diversity, just upholding the appointing members to represent our ethnic culture and demographics for our diversity of the community. Eligibility, so members must be 18 years or older, update on your taxes, Wake County taxes, and also we are adding a youth representative, and which will be a high school student. Resignations. This is now new, so anybody who chooses to resign for any reason and cannot successfully meet your term, you would need to write a statement and the effective date when you need to resign and submit that to the town clerk. The meeting minutes for your committee are they are housed in the clerk's office. So the meeting format and all the actions, the summary of actions that are taking will still be housed through the clerk's office. And then now the ethics and conflicts of interest training will be required at each term. So all of these are new policy recommendations that were recommended in December.
Quick question before you move on.
Yeah.
These are all recommendations. I don't know if all of them are new, right? There's always been eligibility for the $50 stipend for this meeting, and just some clarity on these recommendations. So for the attendance one, is it if you miss 3 consecutive meetings, you're no longer on that? You no longer serve on that board? Is that what that's indicating, or it's recommended?
It will be
that you don't?
reevaluated.
Okay.
Your position on that board will be reevaluated.
At 3 consecutive.
After 3, missed 3 consecutive, yeah.
That's not the language. The language is shall be removed. In the language it says shall. So you're not giving Craig or anybody an option. If somebody misses 3 meetings, you're off.
That's the clarity.
Or you miss 25% of the meetings for any one
You're
board.
off.
So
Yeah.
So that's correct.
Yeah.
Shall be removed.
shall be removed.
So if you are missed 3 meetings or 25%, you shall be removed.
Okay. That's the clarity I was. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And I have a question as well, and that is, historically, we've been able to waive stipends, and many folks have, and that's still an option for us, is that correct?
I believe that is, yes. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
And I don't know the answer to this, does the town receive any federal funds at all?
I'm not familiar with that.
Anything?
For advisory board related? Or?
No. The town in general, does the town receive any federal funds at all? And if the answer
Yes.
is yes, I would strongly advise removing the diversity statement. Dealing with this head on at NC State, any government entity that receives federal funds, if there are any aspects of their policies or procedures that are related in any way to the terms diversity, equity, or inclusion, you run the risk of having those federal funds suspended. So we've been mandated at NC State. I mean, we are scrubbing every website, every page, every policy, every procedure. Our strategic plan has even been modified to reduce it. That's right out front and center. Right. I guarantee you that someone will report that, and if the town receives federal funds, it could be in jeopardy.
So the town, I think most of you know me, Alan Coleman, town clerk. The town recently adopted, as of yesterday, their legislative agenda. And so one of the core guiding principles as it relates to that legislative agenda is equity and inclusion efforts.
Right.
We discussed that. That is still a priority of this elected body, and so they chose to still include it. So you'll probably see that language will continue to stay in the policy because it's a guiding principle for the town and the governing body themselves. Now, should they choose to risk, obtaining federal funds, then, that's certainly something that they're aware of.
Okay.
But they did adopt the legislative agenda yesterday. Can certainly share a copy with that. Of that with you all, but one of the 6 guiding principles was related specifically to equity and inclusion, and under a welcoming community, there was even an additional piece of guidance that they provided as it relates to those efforts. So I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
but
no, and this has been an ongoing. I mean, you can
Sure.
imagine the depth of discussions
Yes.
and meetings that have come up around this, and apparently the term equality is acceptable, but equity is not, which is really, that's a whole discussion for another day. But
Yep.
it's
Yeah, and I appreciate your points. And like I said, the elected body had that same discussion yesterday.
right.
Um,
And same thing has come up in multiple discussions. Well, I mean, are they really going to dive this deep and notice that we have a diversity component, part of our policy for advice? And the reality is they're not the ones digging. All it takes is one person to report, and that's happened to us at NC State. There's one faculty member in Faculty of Education that has been reporting on everything, and subsequently that puts you under the microscope, and then you run the risk. So
Thank you.
yeah, strange days.
Thank you, Alan.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Alan. That was very informative. Okay.
And so our term lengths aren't going to change. We have 3-year term lengths right now, and then we kind of reapply to be accepted.
Right, so how it will work, it will not affect your term lengths now. It will go into, if you're reappointed to your next term, that's when it will start.
I think Matt,
so
Matt
if-
and
I were talking about this.
Yeah,
Saturday.
Matt and I had pretty deep conversations about the
Sure.
changes, so I think we kind of got an email chain going with a number of items that we want to discuss. But I don't want to step on your toes.
Yeah,
I want to
finish.
make sure you're done before you.
Feel free to email those. I would be happy to explain that.
I sent them to the mayor.
Okay.
I wanted his opinion because again, guys, Alan knows I know the mayor, and I was asking his opinion on some things. So I sent it to Jacques personally, not professionally. I didn't want him coming to you or anybody else. I just asked his opinion on some things. So I did send it to him to get his feedback. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten his feedback yet. So. Oh, sorry. I mean,
Well, no, only thing that I'll reference is, we sent out an email December 19th of 2024. And so this is 3 months later, and we've received some feedback from some board members. None have been received from Parks and Rec. So that's the interesting piece.
I could chime in real quick. I've chosen not to email back because in the meeting we had, we were told we would see the presentation that would happen at the working meeting. We never saw that. So I chose to wait for this meeting or until we had a public meeting to make my comments. Was very disappointed in that. Was also disappointed Craig wasn't able to be part of that meeting. So I have very strong feelings about this. We had a great conversation. Not a single thing was portrayed in that meeting. I watched and listened to those minutes. I understand the council has their agenda. I understand the mayor ultimately chooses who's on these boards. But I have some strong feelings about this. And I may choose to share it here. I may follow up an official email. That's fine. In the email Jeff sent personally, the mayor, who I know well, also reached out to me. I did not send an email initially, but I did respond to him with some thoughts there. But finish your presentation. I may have a question or something I want clarification on. But I think to me, my biggest point right now is, as a board, Daryl and I were asked some questions. Maybe a few things got through, but I don't think a single thing that I felt was important was portrayed. And the amount of time spent on our board at that meeting was less than a minute. I watched that meeting fully, and that's very disappointing for a working meeting for a board that works very well, that a minute was spent on it. And I've talked to Councilman Gant, who's my neighbor, about that. I know you have responses and stuff, and I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot here, but if you're making major changes to a board and a board that works well, to ask people to take time out of their day, to consult them, to ask for their opinion as chair and vice chair, and then to not follow through and share what you're going to present, as was promised in that meeting, and then go ahead and not spend any time on this board is disappointing. And I worry about how this board will be treated or how these boards are going to go forward, because this board works well. And being on end of my 5th or 6th year now, as someone who's worked in the field, I'm just starting to understand how we work on this board. So we're going to throw a bunch of new faces in here potentially. Are we going to be like a lot of communities where boards are about special interests, about individuals arguing about sports? Because I work with advisory boards across the state, and that's my concern. And I'm going to pause, but I'll let you finish. But I may have a few questions to follow up there.
Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you for
Sure.
your feedback.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Any more questions before I move on to the next slide? Good? Okay. So the administrative policy recommendations. So the next is the annual report requirement that will be reported out, presented by the chair annually to the town council. And what that will include is any key accomplishments and impacts, alignments with the town's strategic goals, objectives for the next 12 months, any necessary resources for future initiatives, and again, the annual attendance report. Membership updates, clarifying the corporate limits unless it is otherwise stated in your UDO, adding in a youth representative on each advisory board. We talked about that. And then all positions will be voting, including the youth representative. And some advisory boards have ex officios, and those town staff will no longer serve as an ex officio on those boards. Now we're going to go into some scope and responsibilities. for Parks and Rec. So you know your purpose is you are advise staff and town council on Parks and Recreation priorities and apex. So you also review public recreation needs for new developments and long-term planning. So as you see, Parks and Rec, this advisory was established in 1987, 9 members appointed for 3-year terms. Public Art Committee was a subcommittee under the Parks and Rec, but now that is going to be its own standalone committee. Moving on to recommendations that were brought out into that work session, the term limits. So now it will be a maximum of 3 2-year terms. So that's 6 years total. And also shifting the cultural components to the Public Art Committee to broaden their scope. And this is what it would look like. So the Parks and Rec, we'll have established the term limits. So it will be 2-year terms, shifting the cultural arts to public art and broaden their roles and responsibilities. And we'll be adding a youth representative on your board. Any questions before I move on? Well, there's only one more slide, I think. Sorry, there's one more slide.
Is it a thanks for listening slide?
Pretty much. Just, we'll be updating these, in March, the UDO. And I said before, your current terms will not be affected. The change will take effect at the end of the appointment, of your appointment. Currently meeting with staff liaisons, department directors to get this out with this new alignment. We are currently still developing a resident advisory board administrative policy, so that is still in development. And again, recruiting for any vacant positions in the coming months. The quarterly attendance reports will begin in April, and the annual report requirement provided by the chair is due December, and that will be in the December council meeting. And that is it for me. Yes?
A question about the youth representative.
Yes.
Is there an age limit range for the youth representative? What
Like a minimum age?
minimum, maximum? Yeah.
It's mainly focused towards high school students. So between 15 to 16 to senior year in high school.
So there isn't. So there.
Is there a
Like
No.
just stating just high school, it's a high school student,
So-
right?
Yeah, I would just. I mean, if it's not in there, I would advise put an age limit in. You don't want an 11-year-old.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe
Maybe
you
you
do,
do.
right? Maybe you do.
I mean, if 11-year-olds in high school, I would want that person on my board.
Yeah.
I also, along that same line with cancers, I have a concern about a 17-year-old voting on issues. I know maybe not here, but when you get the planning board, some of the decisions that they make are, that's multi-million-dollar decisions that they're making, and you're putting that on a 16 or 17-year-old that can't vote, and yet you're letting them vote on some of these projects. So that's my membership concern, my voting concern for a youth member being under 18. So, and I don't know if that's a legal issue that maybe the town attorney would weigh in on if they have the right to vote. So that's my membership. Okay.
We're still working through that.
Okay.
I think we've always had the stipulation that we had a senior representative, and so I presume that continues, that that's
That will
not changing.
continue. That will continue.
But your legal voting age.
Barely.
There are some things that we're still developing, that we're still trying to figure out. So nothing,
No, I
Your feet-
understand the principle of
okay.
of having a youth representative,
Yep.
and I'm supportive of that for sure, right? Because it's a large segment of our population, and their opinion matters, and a lot of programming is directed at that age group, so it makes sense. But I think the selection process is going to be important, right? the legal perspective obviously is going to have bearing. You know, do you want a minor voting on policy and procedures when they can't vote, right, in the general election? And I don't have a good answer for that. It's an immediate observation concern, right? And I don't have a recommended solution for how you represent the youth of the community without having a youth representative on.
Right.
But maybe it is some type of ex officio. Maybe that's a strategy, right? They're part of the board, but they don't vote, but their opinion gets factored into discussions. I mean, I think there's ways around
Yeah,
it. There's
to be considered.
ways to accommodate, right, that population without creating some legal liability.
And I imagine that part of the process is probably looking at several use cases of other boards that may have youth members, right, and what the rules are running. That's what I would imagine, right? That
So we currently don't have any boards that have any youth representatives.
in other
so-
municipalities and in other places, maybe not
Yes.
the town of Apex. but-
Correct. Other municipalities do.
By voting?
For voting.
They're
yes.
voting? Okay.
Yes. The one thing that has come up from other boards is a great divide on this topic in particular, because some boards feel like if, for the youth to have a say-so, it's important for them to have a vote. And if they don't have a vote, then why would they be in attendance if their voice can be heard, but the whole symbolism of it would be through vote. Now, to the comments that have been made, the attorney has already weighed in on, planning and development, board of adjustment, and those kinds of things, that it's not going to probably move forward for a voting youth representative. But that's where we are for now. And while I'm up here, I'll just share that we did provide a summary, to your point, Matt, to the elected body, a summary that Ashley had created from each board and their comments. So while they weren't directly referenced in the meeting, they were provided to the board
Before or after the work
before
session?
the work session.
Okay, so the first I'd heard about the email was when Matt emailed me and said, "Did you see this?"
Yeah.
It went to my junk mail. It went to my spam. So
Sure.
I'm not blaming you, Alan. That's all I'm
My
saying.
point, Alan, was in that meeting, you, unless I'm mistaken, let Daryl and I know that we'd see that before that meeting to make sure we were properly represented. I never saw that before that meeting.
Sure.
And listening to that meeting, I don't feel like our comment, at least my comments, I don't want to speak for Daryl,
Sure.
were fully represented. A couple things were caught. So if we were asked to provide some input on a meeting, and then that was represented, to me it wasn't. As someone who's worked in local government, I find that disappointing. I understand how busy you are and stuff, but for the future, if you're gonna ask someone to take some time out to talk about something that we're up here as volunteers, is really important to us, and then not do that, that was probably my biggest disappointment. To be honest, I chose not to email because I was like, you know what, let me be done with it. But then I got rolled into an email. When I get rolled into an email and you ask my opinion, I'm going to reply and
Sure.
give my opinion. So
Sure. So the things, just to be clear, the things that you brought up, you and Daryl both, when this meeting was held, were things that applied to almost every board.
Sure.
Because as it relates to term limits, as it relates to stipends, shared language documents, diversity and equity and inclusion things,
And I
all of
agree with
those.
all that.
Right, but they're captured in a full range across all boards, and not just Parks and Rec. So, for what it's worth, and I'll say that, you mentioned that the director wasn't included in those conversations, and there were conversations with the director.
Okay. Well,
So if
Again, I'm
there's
not-
other things that I'm not aware of, then
Alan,
please.
I'm not trying to put you on the defensive here. I just
No.
share my opinion that something was said it was going to be done, it wasn't done.
Sure.
And I think that's a disappointment, and it made me take a sharper lens at how it was presented. So I don't agree with how it was presented. I'm okay with the outcomes. I don't agree with all of them.
Sure.
I'm concerned about the term limits, especially for this group. So Jeff and I will be done in 3 months. Who's been on here for more than 6 years?
You're gone. Tom's gone. You're gone.
So we'll lose a big gap, and that's a concern about the amount of time it takes. So you're losing experts. I get it, and I'm a big fan of bringing in new faces and new voices, but I also think I have concerns about the amount of technical knowledge that is needed for this board specifically, that there's going to be a gap. I don't mind rolling off. I got way too much to do anyway. I got 2 young kids at home, but I'm concerned about that gap, and I think that's worth I don't think it's very clear in how it's presented. And I think the way the email came out, and again, why I chose not to respond was, hey, if you want to resign, resign. Thanks. See you later. So again, just things to consider for the future. So.
And when we talk about term limits, because I needed clarity on that in that meeting, right? I remember this, and I needed clarity on that. And we didn't get into the depth of like, well, if it's changed, how it impacts our board. And maybe that's probably a part of the conversation that should have been had. Because I do remember also, I think the only board that didn't have term limits was our board, right? And so,
But there was a reason for that.
right. So again, those things were more surface level topics in our meeting, right? That now after that, with Matt and I talked about it briefly afterwards. I didn't take the approach, that he wanted to, but it seems like there could have been deeper conversations about that once we started, unveiling things like how many people rolled off our board and things of that nature. So yeah, I do remember the meeting. I remember diversity and the youth member was big topics for me, and then I needed clarity on term limits because I made mention of the gentleman before me, Alan, and him being off the board. I thought,
Mr. Buck, yes.
Yeah, that was a part of that, and so. But again, there was only surface level conversation that we didn't dive into how it would impact our board. So maybe that's a part of the lessons learned here. And then I think there may be, and I can only speak for me, the thought of how it feels or looks that our board is the only board without term limits, and now we get rolled into doing how everyone else is. And I think that's a part of it. I'm not saying that's but I think that's a part of the reception of how this is all played out.
I think my question is most of this coming from, for each of these boards, we're looking for people that have expertise that are going to be most effective, per like whatever topic it is. And so do we have this backlog of people that are interested and want to serve and have those expertise that best align with those different boards? If there is, then absolutely we should have term limits. If there is not, then my concern is that you're losing a lot of expertise that you want that specifically are focused and the most effective for each of those different boards. So I wonder if we just run the risk of losing that expertise just because of the kind of the term, not even the term limits, the 6 years, because yes, I think you can't, it's hard to really have an understanding for, it's a number of years before kind of like really have an understanding and start to be.
And that's what we talked about in the meeting, I think, and I'm going to speak for, we maybe interpret a few things differently, but I think we were 90% aligned. The equity stuff I'm aligned with, the youth thing I'm aligned with. I think the term limits was probably the biggest thing. I think my comment was, I'm okay with term limits, but shrinking that 6 years is such a short period for a board that's technical, and I think that's what we had talked about in the meeting. I get it, you're trying to make things universal. I understand it. That's what I'm doing with one of my projects right now, right? Keep it simple. But again, to Daryl's point, if I would have understood that meeting would have then, a couple weeks later, turned into a work session, and then now it's recommendations, I would have asked for more clarity, I would ask for more time. So I think 2 points here is major concern again about that, basically a huge knowledge gap, right? There's going to be this huge knowledge gap. That's probably my number one concern, and for what, right? A 2-year term is quick, and I get it. Sometimes you want to get someone off after 2 years, maybe not.
But you can. Because every 2 years, the mayor has the ability to reappoint or not reappoint that person. So adding term limits to any of these boards that may or may not have them, it's in the mayor's seat every 2 years. So to me,
Mayor and council.
Well, technically it's the mayor because the mayor is the one that recommends them to the board. If the mayor doesn't recommend Jeff Roach as reappointed, he basically kicked me off the board. So he has the power. It doesn't matter what the council members think if the mayor is not going to put my name out there for reappointment. So there's a natural control of this board by the mayor and the council members. When I come up for reelection, if Brett Gant doesn't like me, he can protest and get me kicked off if he wants to. So I took a different approach than what Matt did, which Matt went after more of it wasn't shared with the council. I took a technical approach to each of the different items and said, technically, here are my concerns. So like the attendance concern, we have 11 meetings a year. If you miss 3, you're not asked to leave. You're told you're done. So I think that's wrong because you could lose some database where a guy like Mike Cantors has missed 3 meetings in years and you just told him he's gone and 5 years ago, he would have been off this board. So my concern is from a very strict adherence to the law, there are reasons that you evaluate why somebody missed a meeting. So I think the attendance policy needs to be looked at to say that it's looked at for removal from the board, either by unexcused absences or for whatever reason. So that's my first point. I went into the teen voting concern that I have. If the town attorney's fine with it, I could care less. I'd love having teens sit out here. When we did the skate plaza, they were all sitting out here, and we love to hear from them because that let us help with our designs and our master plan to support the teens who are using some of these facilities. Diversity we talked upon, annual reporting, don't really have a preference. Membership and term limits. Let's start with term lengths. 2 years. Lisa's been on for what, 5 meetings?
2 months. And guess who I asked all my questions to? Those guys right there.
Right.
So,
it takes time.
I would be leery about even saying yes to being a part of a committee that doesn't have experienced members.
I mean, and going through, and the master plan gets updated every 10 years. I think it's a requirement to go after funding for these projects. So having a board up here and people that have gone through, I mean, I went through 2, so I've been through the changes. I know what to ask and I know what to look for, and then you can help the younger people. So saying that, hey, you can only be on here 6 years, well, that means nobody up here is ever going to have experience going through what a master plan is, and you're fully relying upon staff, which is great, and Craig, who are very good, but having the kind of institutional knowledge sitting up here to help you through that process makes sense. And to Lisa's point, we all bring backgrounds. A lot of us, I'm a civil engineer, landscape architect. The previous chair was a landscape architect, doctor of Parks and Rec. So that's the reason that this board doesn't have a maximum term limit, is to keep guys like Mike Cantors on this board. With term limits, he's gone. He's been gone for 5 years now, and we lose the Carolina Hurricanes and things like that. So I think this board, and maybe the planning board's the same, maybe the Board of Adjustment's the same, but those are state-controlled required boards, correct? Do they also automatically set their term limits?
For Board of Adjustment, they do, not for Planning Board.
But planning board, Apex can control.
Correct.
Okay. But again, I think it's an artificial control because the mayor always has control to either remove if somebody's being inappropriate, or to just not reappoint at the end of their term. So I've been lucky enough to work with 4 different mayors in this seat, and each one of them I've had a great relationship with, and we don't agree on everything, but to be able to work with people in your tenure keeps you sitting up here and keeps you having input on items. So I think having, it's just that much more work for the mayor's office and your office and the town council to have to reappoint all these boards every 2 years. So keeping it on a 3-year schedule, we have 9 members, 3-year term, you get, 3 every year, if my math is correct as an engineer. So I've really liked how it's been set up. So I see all these mass changes coming through here, and the institutional knowledge is going to walk away this year, and then next year is immense. So
I wonder if it just brainstorming up here, listening to what you guys are saying, I wonder if it would be helpful to have that 6-year maximum go into effect with each new member, just like the 2-year term is going into effect. It's not affecting us right now if I'm on 3-year term, but if there's a 6-year max with a new member, all of us that are up here can think about our skills and talents and knowledge that you bring and experience, and say, we're looking at the next 10 applicants. We could say, here's some expertise that we need because in a year or 2, this person is rolling off. And that holds this group, stable as we look at that over the next several years. It's just
Was planning board, I think planning board had a max of 9, or currently has a max of 10 years or 9 years or something like that. I think, to me, I think 9 years, 6 years, 3 years is way too short. 2 years is out of the question. 6 years, I think, is getting to a point, because we only meet 11 times a year. Yeah. It's not a huge commitment, but having the base knowledge long enough, and at the end of 6 years, if you're tired, if your kids are getting older and you're in baseball or lacrosse or hockey or something, you always have the opportunity to resign your position or walk away and say, I'm too busy, I just can't do this. Mr. Mayor, thanks, but I'm going to check out. So I'm not, and I'll throw my last comment in here. If we're going to put term limits on the Parks and Rec board, I want to put term limits on council and mayor then. There, I said it. I said it on a public hearing, so. I'm on record
live
saying
stream,
it.
live
Can you
stream.
write that? Can you send that to the mayor for me?
Well, and for
continue.
I was just going to say, for what it's worth, I mean, this is your feedback, though, is what I'm hearing is not just applicable to Parks and Rec. What you're saying is if there's expertise on a particular board, you know, that could be the Environmental Advisory Board, that could be Planning Board, that could be Board of Adjustment, that there should be no term limits at all, is what I'm hearing. That would apply to all boards, right? And the same thing, 2-year term, 3-year term, each time that comes up, there's this eligibility, right? They have to be recommended by the mayor, they have to be appointed by the council, but at no point is there a rule that someone rolls off.
The rules are in place for the other boards now. And
No,
so
what I'm hearing, though, is that you would suggest, right, that
I
there
don't have a
not be
preference.
any.
Yeah, I don't have a preference either way. I'm focused on the Parks and Rec board.
Yeah.
If the planning board wants to remove term limits and say somebody can serve 20 years, that's up to them. I'm
What do
looking
you
at
think?
If the right people are on the planning board, meaning that the original charter for the planning board was that 50% or more of the planning board was going to be made up of real estate professionals, landscape architects, engineers, real estate agents. That got changed 2 years ago. That's no longer the case. So now you have lay people that have no interest in development or land, making decisions on development and land. They're basically reiterating what staff is telling them, and they're supporting staff without the base knowledge to say this is a bad development. So from a Parks and Rec standpoint, same exact thing. You've got experts in landscape architecture and Parks and Rec, you know, guys like this that understand the Parks and Rec side with master planning, understand when things work and don't work. So to me, if planning board does away with it, if you have the right mix of people up there, absolutely. That makes the mayor and the council members that much more responsible for watching those meetings and saying, man, Jeff doesn't have any idea what he's talking about up there. When he comes up for re-election here, I got to remember to kick him off. You know, I mean, puts a lot more pressure on those guys. Sure. And at the end of the day, you know, I vote for a council member and a mayor that are going to make the hard decisions that I'm not willing to make. Mm-hmm. Okay? Kicking somebody off of this board and not reappointing them is a hard decision that I don't want to make. I leave it to the mayor and the council. And at the end of the day, we all serve at the pleasure of the mayor. If he doesn't like me, he doesn't like you guys, he wants to kick you off, I'll go downtown and eat dinner and not come to Parks and Rec board on Wednesday night. But like I said, Alan, I probably should have sent this to you and I'll send this to you tomorrow because it's just facts about each position and just my quick, you know, 1-sentence blog on, hey, here's what I think. Here's why I don't like the teen voting or the attendance policy. So again, I'm focused just on the Parks and Rec board. If the mayor wants to do away with other planning board or some other board.
Well, and to be clear, that's not been proposed, but I just wanted to
recap.
I know. I wanted to recap that what it sounded like what you were suggesting could apply for other boards. It wouldn't just apply to Parks and Rec, because if the justification is behind expertise and the knowledge in that particular field, which is what you've said, that would apply for Planning Board, Board of Adjustment, Environmental Advisory Board, all that.
If you got a beekeeper on the Bee City Committee, they should be on there for life, in my opinion. I know the board's not like that.
But the last thing I'll just mention is as it relates to term limits. So one of the things that has come up through several advisory boards feedback through this process is that the term limits start at the new terms. So for example, if at the end of your term, if your term expires this year, if you are reappointed, then that would start your one 2-year cycle. Another 2-year cycle. And so everybody would start fresh. It wouldn't hold back their old stuff. Now,
right.
That's not been proposed, but that has been what's asked from other boards, because we've got the same situation with a transit board as well as with EAB, where could be this mass exit. And so that's one of the things that they've asked for.
So for those of us so I'm coming up on 6, you're past 6, you're 5, right? So in theory, that was probably my number one concern and what I was most frustrated about with that whole process, because the way I left the meeting was like, hey, do 3 terms, 9 years is okay, that makes sense, and all of a sudden 6 years, right? Caught me by surprise. That was my concern, because basically from here, and you too, you're on your 5th year, 4th year?
Next year I'm up again, so 26.
Yeah, so basically in theory, a year from now, from here down would be gone.
think I'm
It's
on
a two,
four.
two on the end.
Four.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's
Four.
saying-
Good luck.
I'm on
Yeah,
four.
I'm not
I'm on
even
four.
like.
All right, so 2 years from now, yeah. So, but so yeah, so 2 years from now, and that was my biggest. So 2 years from now, basically from here down is gone, and that was my concern because this board is very effective, and it's not confrontational. It has good, strong conversations.
The expertise that is
Mhm.
on the board.
And I'm someone who I lead national trainings on Parks and Recreation for my job. And it took me until year 3 or 4 to really figure out what the heck was going on. And I'm happy to provide that feedback in email and whatnot, but I think that is and I'll apologize too. I decided not to email you because I was just like, whatever, it's fine. And then again, I got rolled in an email, so ask my opinion. So I'm not trying to put you on the spot. But I think that is my concern overall, is that this board has expertise and we're being asked to vote on planning things. We're being asked to vote on master plans, and I'm happy to email council with my thoughts and whatnot. And I talked to Councilman Gantz, my neighbor. I just talked to him off record just as he's walking by my house one day. And it could be detrimental because I've seen it, and I've said this before, working with advisory boards on my past position with the North Carolina Association, is they get filled with individuals who have very specific agendas, whether it's for a specific sport, for a specific thing, and it's no longer a board that is moving things forward. It's a board that's sitting there and infighting. Not saying that happened. We're fortunate that our mayor is really forward thinking. He's I trust his decisions. He's put great people on this board. So, but if he's not there one day, right, or someone else makes a decision, so and I'll stop. I'll get off my soapbox for this afternoon. But that is something I was concerned about. So.
It also starts lining up. And last comment, and I'll be done.
Because I'm on
I know.
Yeah, because I got to be somewhere too. Yeah.
We got 3 pieces of business too.
Last comment that I have is that having the 2 years starts to line it up with the council elections. So now you start getting very partisan opportunities for people to be appointed, not just, and this is across town for all the boards now.
The potential is what you're
A
saying.
potential with a new council member coming in, fighting the mayor, a new mayor coming in, being able to reappoint his people to every board, which he technically has the right to do. But as a 3-year member, we can outlast the mayor and the council members, so it's not as politically appointed. So that's why I like the 3-year terms, kind of put you in the middle of that council cycle. So anyway, with that, I'll shut up.
Listen, I appreciate all the comments, and I think this was fruitful and healthy, and it needed to happen. So I'm fine with that. But we do need to move on. We have 3 more items here. Alan, do you have anything else? Okay.
Nope.
All right.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Great presentation.
guys.
Thank you so much.
for your feedback.
Thank
Right.
you.
Right. All right, next up, we have the discussion and possible motion regarding the proposed New Hill Commons Plan Unit development.
Mr. Chair, I'd have to ask to be recused for the next 2 items, if that's okay with you.
Yes, sir. So is that
Motion to-
motion? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Motion from Lisa.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Right. Good evening. So the New Hill Commons Plan Unit Development Project is 55 plus acres, comprised of several tracts on the northwest side of the intersection of Old US 1 Highway and New Hill Olive Chapel Road. The request proposes a maximum of 166 single-family homes along with other commercial uses as a part of a mixed-use community with residential and non-residential districts rezoning to a planned unit development conditional zoning. The property is not located within a parkland search area in the master plan, and there's no greenway shown within the project. Staff is recommending a fee in lieu of dedication based on number of units proposed, location, and acreage of the property. And if you need to see, but it's this one, and we also have a close-up if you want more detailed maps.
Questions, comments?
No.
So we would need a motion here. Business as usual, if I could get that.
I move to accept the staff recommendation for the New Hills Commons PUD for fee in lieu.
Second.
Motion and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
All right. Next up, Hobson Gateway Planned Unit Development. The Hobson Gateway Planned Unit Development project is just over 58 acres. The property is comprised of several tracts north of US 1 and is situated between the future Perry Road extension to the east and US Highway 1 to the south. The property is a part of a land swap whereby the developer Acre will own an approximately 58-acre parcel on the west side of Perry Road, and the town will own an approximately 39.62-acre parcel east of Perry Road. The request proposes a maximum combination of 220 single-family attached and detached units and 400 multifamily units as part of a rezoning to a planned unit development conditional zoning. This property is partially within a parkland search area identified on the master plan, which you can see at the very southern edge here. And there are greenways that run along the west side of the property. It's the Big Branch Greenway Corridor, and it's on the west boundary. Staff is recommending a fee in lieu of dedication with credit for construction of greenway facilities based on the number of units, proposed location, acreage, and the Big Branch Greenway alignment.
Any questions, comments for Angela?
Andrew, when you say credit for what
They-
you quantify?
So if they build the greenway as a part of their project, then the fees that they owed, the amount that the greenway cost, they get credit, so they don't have to pay the
Who
fees.
determines the cost of the greenway? So
They provide us with a engineer's estimate of probable cost based on the construction plans, and we review that
that's
with some other staff.
it's a third-party assessment, essentially, of the cost of the greenway.
Yes, that usually it's the engineer who's done the design work on the project. They provide that to us. We reference against like NCDOT, average cost, our cost, unit quantities, and verify that. We keep a running list of all the projects that have come in and kind of work within an average or any special conditions of that project. And then they're given credit at the time that they're platting the lots or getting building permits for apartments.
Since I know it's a very small portion that falls within a parkland area, is there a reason why we're not recommending at least some development of?
Part of that is because the majority of the area that's in that parkland search is the Veridia project. And so we're getting land as a part of that, for both the blue as the indoor search area and then the orange as the outdoor parks.
That was.
And so to have a couple acres on the other side of the highway,
Right.
wasn't as, for us, the greenway's primary, and then,
Yeah, I figured the greenway is primary emphasis, but yeah.
yep.
That
Okay.
was my question too, kind of what was the advantage of the land swap? You know, so.
Well, so the town owned some property, and it was both projects had property split on the east and west side of Perry Road, and so the land swap provides a sort of more a rectangular site for the town on one, and that's like more of a utility public works type property, and then this property on the west side would develop as residential. And then what you don't see on this is the Grace Christian School owns the parcel to the west of this, and they're providing greenway on the south side of their property. And so this property would then link in north and south on Big Branch, but then east and west as well.
So it's going to provide a connector.
It should be, yeah, it would provide the connection.
Have a long route one.
Yes, definitely a longer one. And might be easier to get that. Sorry, I'll get you this one so you can see it better. But, so this is the Grace Christian School site, so they're providing the greenway almost to the property line. And then this is Big Branch that's coming south all the way through here on the property line. But then this will also go east to Perry Road, and we've always had a double alignment of if this road is built in the future across, then we could go east or west to cross the highway. So we're sort of building that east to west will be built the entire length, and then this north to south into Big Branch. And we have the other projects that you've already reviewed here, and so there is potential that the funding from this that we get could go to build to the Peakway, and that would finish Big Branch as far as the north of Highway 1.
Need a motion.
Motion to approve staff recommendation for fee in lieu on the Hobson Gateway planned unit development.
Second.
Motion and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Need a motion to bring Mr. Roach back?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Was he the engineer that recommended the?
I'll make a motion to bring him back.
I'll second.
Motion
Even
properly
though he
second.
would sit
All in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
Against it.
Motion carried.
I thought you were gonna vote against it.
One more.
I thought about it.
Would have been the first time that,
Would've been
that
awesome.
we would have disagreed.
I've been across the street getting.
That's something that had not passed.
All right, your final project for the evening. The Altera Heights Planned Unit Development project is just about 13.5 acre property comprised of several tracts on the northwest side of the intersection of Jenks Road and Wimberley Road. The request proposes a maximum of 300 multifamily units as a part of a rezoning to planned unit development conditional zoning. This property is not located within a parkland search area, and there's no greenway shown on the property. Staff is recommending a fee in lieu of dedication based on the number of units proposed, location, and acreage.
Hey, Angela, what would the amount be, just out of curiosity?
The amount of land.
No, the fee in lieu dedication. Give me a ballpark.
Oh, the fee is $2,516 per unit at 300 units.
600 and something $1,000, and you got a park across the street.
You-
The park is just north of there, right?
Right. In this area here, you have the proposed future Wimberley Road parkland.
I'm just saying the money will be well spent. Sorry, the money has already been well spent.
The money will go into the recreation reserves for future capital projects that will serve those residents.
Because the park is right there.
And there's no potential greenway connectors anywhere in that area.
There is side path along Wimberley Road
see
as
that.
the development occurs, and
And they'll connect to the greenway across the street. in theory.
then there's the South White Oak, and then there's the section that goes into the Wimberley Parkland. And we have been consistently working with Wake County to chase land opportunities or connection opportunities to the ATT with additional trailhead parking lots. When Wimberley Road is, fixed, updated, widened, not that that's an intent to have it be majorly changed. There is the crossing of the bridge at White Oak, which the park is directly south of, and the ATT is directly north of. And at some point, that side path would be by the street, like on the side of the street, connection across a bridge to get there, which is not available today. So those are longer term transportation plans, but we're continuing to evaluate anything that might be available in that area on the west side of Wimberley that could get a parking lot and access to the ATT, and most often in partnership with Wake County since they manage the ATT.
Awesome. I'll make a motion.
Second. Whatever your motion was, second.
I'll make a motion to accept the Altera Heights rezoning fee in lieu.
Second.
Motion and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. If nothing else, need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.
Good job,
Like
girl.
the gavel.
That was a good job.